Midnight train to nowhere, San Francisco. The train didn't advertise where it was going. No glowing letters on the side. No destination printed on the station screens. Just 12:03 a.m. departure, blinking on the monitor as if that was enough to convince anyone who had nothing left to wait for. San Francisco had already curled into itself. The fog had returned early that night, crawling in from the bay like a tired animal. The streets were nearly empty, just the soft hum of traffic echoing between buildings and the occasional distant voice of someone trying to stay awake or stay alive. Platform 9 sat quiet. Old benches. Yellowed lights. A vending machine half covered in graffiti. At 12:01, the first person appeared. A man in his late 40s, long coat buttoned up, holding a worn leather briefcase that had seen better decades. His name was Alan, but no one would know that tonight. He hadn't spoken his name out loud since the funeral 3 weeks ago. Not since the last handful of dirt hit the wood. At 12:02, a woman arrived. Younger. Her eyes wide but tired. Her sweater torn near the sleeve. She clutched a notebook to her chest like it might protect her from the world. Her name was Nora, though she wasn't sure if she still believed in names. After all, the last time she told someone her name, they left. Then the train arrived, not loud, not fast. Just quiet. Like it had been waiting. Alan and Nora stepped aboard without speaking. Carriage 3 was empty. Not just in seats. Empty of expectation. Empty of pressure. The doors closed without a sound. Somewhere near the Embarcadero, an old woman with silver dreadlocks and a camera that looked too big for her frail hands joined the ride. She smiled at no one in particular and hummed an old jazz tune as she settled near the back. Alan sat across from Nora, not looking at her directly, but aware of her presence. Something about her reminded him of the letters his wife used to write before the illness took her words away. Letters full of half-finished thoughts and beautiful, broken sentences. Nora scribbled something in her notebook and then crossed it out with too much force. "You a writer?" Alan asked, the words barely rising above a whisper. "I was," she said. "Now I just bleed on paper." Alan nodded. He understood that. "You?" she asked. "I used to be a father," he said. "Then my son stopped calling, and my wife stopped breathing." Nora stared out the window. "That's a hard way to disappear." He smiled sadly. "Some of us don't vanish. We just fade." The train passed through dark tunnels, past stations that no longer existed. Time seemed to slow. Or maybe it just stopped mattering. The old woman with the camera approached them. "Mind if I take your picture?" she asked. "Why?" Nora asked. "Because one day, you'll need proof you were here. That you survived the night." Nora hesitated. Then nodded. The woman snapped the photo. Alan smiled at her. "You always ride this train?" "Only on nights I remember too much," she said. "The city listens better in motion." They didn't question her. "Not on this train." At 12:41 a.m., a boy boarded. 16, maybe 17. Hoodie soaked. Face bruised. He didn't speak. Just curled up in the corner, watching everyone with wide, defensive eyes. Nora passed him a granola bar from her bag. He took it without thanks, but his fingers trembled when he unwrapped it. "I'm Nora," she said gently. He didn't respond. "That's Alan." The boy looked at Alan. "You a cop?" "No," Alan said. "I quit saving people a long time ago." The boy smirked, just barely. Then whispered, "Good. I'm not looking to be saved." Nora looked at him carefully. "What are you looking for?" The boy stared at the ceiling. "A place where no one knows what I did." Silence. Heavy. "Honest, you'll find it on this train," the old woman said, walking by. "But only until the sun rises." The train moved like a lullaby, gentle turns, the soft rumble like a heartbeat under worn-wood floors. At 1:17 a.m., the city outside began to melt into distant hills and lonely trees. The fog had swallowed everything behind them. Only the rails ahead remained clear. Alan opened his briefcase. Inside was a book of poems, handwritten in messy ink. He passed it to Nora without a word. She flipped through it. Stopped on one page, "Grief is a house with all the lights off and every door locked from the inside." She closed the book slowly. Did she write these? Alan nodded. Before the chemo stole her hands. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm not," he replied. She left something that didn't die with her. Nora returned the book and looked out the window. The city lights were gone. Just trees now. And fog. And memory. At 1:53 a.m., the boy finally spoke. "My name's Daniel," he said. "I hit my stepdad. Broke his jaw. Cops are probably looking for me." No one said anything. Then Alan said, "Sometimes, the only way to speak is with your fists." Nora nodded. "And sometimes the only way to run is forward." Daniel looked at them like he hadn't expected forgiveness. Like it hurt to be seen. At 2:12 a.m., the train slowed. Not to stop, just to breathe. A woman in a wedding dress stood alone on a station that shouldn't have existed. She didn't move. Just watched the train pass. Alan stared at her through the window. "My wife," he whispered. "She looked just like that on our wedding day." Nora turned to look. But the station was already gone. At 2:38 a.m., the camera woman fell asleep, her hands wrapped around the lens like it was a memory she couldn't afford to drop. Nora leaned her head against the window. "I used to dream of escaping," she murmured. "But I think what I really wanted was to arrive somewhere and be wanted." Alan closed his eyes. "I think we all board this train hoping it takes us back to ourselves." Daniel tucked the granola wrapper into his pocket and watched Nora. "You ever stop being angry?" She shook her head. "No. But I learned how to write it down instead of letting it eat me." "Does it help?" "Not tonight," she said. "But maybe tomorrow." The train kept moving. Never speeding. Never stopping. By 3 a.m., it felt like the whole world had disappeared. No city. No clocks, just stories, just breaths shared in the dark. At 3:29 a.m., Alan stood. "This is where I get off." Nora looked out. There was no platform. "Where?" she asked. That he smiled. "It doesn't matter. I found what I needed." He handed her the book of poems. "Give it to someone who'll remember." Then he was gone, not vanished, just gone. At 3:46 a.m., the old woman with the camera woke up and whispered, "You'll be fine, Nora. Just don't stop writing until you can sleep again." Nora nodded. At 4 a.m., Daniel spoke again. "I think I want to go home." "Not now. Just, someday." Nora smiled. "Maybe that's what healing is." By 4:21 a.m., the train was slowing again. The fog began to lift. Nora opened her notebook and, for the first time in months, began to write something she didn't cross out. The train didn't stop. It just kept going, taking its passengers, one quiet soul at a time, through the night until they remembered who they were. A midnight train. To nowhere, and everywhere. The 4 a.m. diner, Chicago. The snow had started falling before midnight, blanketing the streets of Chicago in a slow, soft white that made even the loudest corners of the city feel silent. No sirens. No honking. Just the hush of winter and the whisper of wind brushing against the buildings. On West Belmont Avenue, tucked between a pawn shop and a laundromat, sat an all-night diner called June's. The red neon sign buzzed slightly, the J flickering like it had a bad memory. Inside, the air was warm. Coffee pots steamed. A jukebox played a song too old for anyone under 50 to recognize. And behind the counter stood Mara. She'd been working the night shift for 6 years now. 6 winters. 6,000 cups of coffee. She never wore her name tag anymore. Anyone still awake at 4 a.m. either didn't care or already knew who she was. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, time slowed. The first customer that night was a man in his 50s. Leather gloves. Glasses fogged from the cold. He sat at the far booth like he was meeting a ghost. Mara brought him coffee before he even asked. Still black? She asked that he nodded. Still bitter. She gave a soft smile and turned to wipe down the counter. His name was Jonah. She didn't know much about him, only that he came in every Thursday night and always ordered a slice of cherry pie but never ate it. He would just look at it, like it reminded him of something or someone. At 1:13 a.m., a younger woman entered, wrapped in a coat too thin for the storm. Her mascara had smudged, and her hands shook as she held a half-cracked phone charger. She asked, voice nearly gone. Mara pointed to the outlet beneath the window. Coffee? The woman nodded. Please. She sat near Jonah's booth but not close enough to say hello. Mara poured her a cup and left the cream on the table. The woman's name was Clara, though she hadn't said it yet. She'd just left a voicemail she wasn't sure she'd ever forgive herself for. The kind of voicemail you send when your world tips sideways, and you're too tired to hold it upright anymore. Jonah glanced at her. Rough night? She didn't answer. Just stared at her phone screen like it might rewind time if she looked long enough. At 2:01 a.m., the bell above the door rang again. This time it was a teenager, maybe 18. Soaked hoodie. Red eyes. He shuffled to the counter and dropped a $5 bill on it. Can I just sit? He asked. Don't need food. Mara nodded. You get a coffee, anyway. House rules. He sat on the stool closest to the jukebox, which now played a low, jazzy tune that filled the silences between everyone's thoughts. His name was Theo. He hadn't been home in 2 days. Not since the argument. Not since his mother said those words she probably didn't mean, and he said the ones he definitely did. Jonah looked over. You can have my pie, he said. Theo blinked. Why? I never eat it. Theo slid into the booth across from him. Clara looked up. Jonah shrugged. Figured we could share the silence. And they did. At 2:34 a.m., a cab driver walked in. Snow in his beard, gloves stiff with cold. Bathroom? He asked. Mara handed him the key. He nodded his thanks. When he returned, she poured him coffee without asking. You look like you've seen ghosts, she said. I drive them around every night, he replied with a tired smile. At 3:07 a.m., Mara put her hand on the counter and leaned forward. You all ever notice this time of night? No one's pretending anymore. They looked at her. No one says, I'm fine. At 4 a.m., she said. You either spill your guts or stay quiet enough to disappear. Clara spoke first. I left him, she whispered. After 6 years. I finally said it. Left the keys and walked out. And now I'm scared I'll never love anyone again. No one judged her. Jonah stirred his coffee. I lost my wife 12 years ago. Cancer. Still think she's gonna walk in and ask why I'm drinking this garbage coffee. Theo smiled. I told my mom I hated her, he muttered. Just before she said she was proud of me. I ran out before she finished the sentence. The cab driver laughed softly. I once left my daughter's birthday to finish a shift. She didn't talk to me for a year. Still drives me around sometimes. Mara exhaled. I left my hometown at 19. Thought I was escaping. Turns out I was just running. But this place? She looked around. It's the first place I ever felt still. The snow outside thickened. No1 left. At 4:11 a.m., the power flickered. The jukebox stopped. The neon sign outside finally gave up. Mara lit a candle and set it on the counter. This, she said, is the part of the night where things begin again. Clara stood and walked over to Theo. You hungry? He blinked. Kinda. She looked at Mara. Can I get a sandwich for the kid? Mara nodded. It's on the house. They shared grilled cheese and tomato soup in silence. Jonah finally ate the pie. Mara watched them. Strangers, sure. But something had shifted. the diner wasn't just warm now. It was sanctuary. At 4:38 a.m., Clara's phone buzzed. A message: I hope you're okay. Call me when you're ready. I still love you. She smiled. Just barely. Then tucked the phone away. At 4:51 a.m., Theo stood. I should go. Mara gave him a cup of coffee to go. You'll be okay, she said. Thanks for seeing me, he replied. When the door closed behind him, no one spoke. At 5 a.m. sharp, the jukebox came back to life. A new song, hopeful, soft. Clara took a deep breath. Jonah looked out the window. The snow had stopped. The city wasn't awake yet, but it wasn't sleeping either. Mara poured one last cup of coffee for herself. You know, she said, we could all go our whole lives thinking we're the only ones breaking quietly. Jonah smiled. But we're not. Clara nodded. Not even close. Outside, a new day waited, hidden under snowbanks and early bus schedules. Inside June's diner, the lights flickered again. But no one minded. The night had done its work, and somewhere, deep in the silence between words and coffee refills, hearts had shifted just enough to matter. The Spin Cycle, New York. Somewhere in the Lower East Side, where the air always smelled faintly of concrete and ambition, a little laundromat stayed open all night. No name. Just a red neon sign in the window that read open in flickering letters. One of the bulbs in the O had burned out years ago, so it read PN, like it was offering something more vulnerable than clean laundry. It was 2:09 a.m. during the fifth night of a brutal New York heatwave. The kind where even the moon seemed to sweat. Most of the city was locked away in window unit ACs and sleepless frustration. But the laundromat, it breathed. It hummed. A soft, constant rhythm of spinning machines, distant salsa on the radio, and the occasional soft cough of someone trying to forget the day. Tonight, there were only 3 people inside when she arrived. Her name was Riley. Short, buzzed hair. A canvas tote bag slung over one shoulder, heavy with clothes and regret. She was 29, but she looked like someone who'd aged in dog years, heartbroken, maybe. Or just tired of pretending. The guy behind the folding table was Gus. 53. Wore suspenders even when it made no sense. He didn't say much, but he kept the place running and knew the names of every cat within a 5-block radius. He nodded to Riley when she entered, offered her a cold bottle of water from the mini fridge without saying a word. She mouthed, "Thank you," and sat at machine number 6, the one farthest from the windows. The other 2 inside were strangers. A man in his early 30s, suit wrinkled, tie loosened, sitting cross-legged on the floor reading a newspaper like it was still 1998. He looked like he'd either just left a job interview or just walked out of a marriage. The last was an elderly woman in a velvet tracksuit, humming a lullaby in Spanish as she folded baby clothes into neat piles. No baby in sight. The washing machine spun like the world hadn't already cracked a little today. Riley poured in detergent, set the cycle, and sat down. She didn't take her phone out. Didn't scroll. Just listened. To the machines. To the breath of the night. After 20 silent minutes, the man in the suit looked up from his newspaper and said, "You look like you lost something." Riley blinked. "Don't we all?" He nodded. "My name's Charles. I was supposed to get married this morning." She raised an eyebrow. "You're a little overdressed for heartbreak." He laughed softly. "I didn't show up." Riley winced. "Ouch. She was too good for me," he said. But she didn't know it yet. "I figured I'd save her the years it takes to realize." "Generous of you," Riley muttered, leaning back against the buzzing wall. The elderly woman chimed in from her corner. "Cowardice always dresses up like mercy." Charles turned to her. "You got a name?" "Lucia," she said. "I fold memories for a living." Riley smiled faintly. "You babysit?" Lucia shook her head. "I outlived everyone I used to babysit." The room fell quiet again. Machines hummed. Rain began outside, gentle and rare for an August night. Gus turned the fan higher. It didn't help. Do you ever wonder, Riley said softly, how much of ourselves we leave behind in these machines? Lucia looked up. Every thread tells a story. Charles laughed bitterly. Mine mostly tell the story of running away. Lucia stood, walked to the middle of the room, and looked at them both. Want to hear something strange? They nodded. I come here every Thursday night. Even when I have nothing to wash. Because it smells like when I was a mother. She paused, and because grief doesn't mind folding towels at 3 a.m. Riley closed her eyes for a moment. I came here because I just left someone I loved, she whispered. She said she couldn't be with someone who keeps running. I told her I'd stop. But the truth is, I don't know how. Charles watched her. I think we all came here to spin something out of ourselves, he said. Because out there, he motioned toward the window, they expect us to be dry, folded, clean. They sat like that for a while. Quiet. Listening. The rain grew stronger, then Riley's machine beeped. Cycle finished. She stood, opened it, and pulled out a faded hoodie that had belonged to her brother, the only piece of him she kept after the overdose. She clutched it close for a moment. Then sat down again and started folding slowly. Lucia approached, holding one of the baby's socks. I used to imagine my daughter's child in these, she said, tears hiding in her smile. But she never had one. Cancer took her before she got the chance. Riley reached for her hand. Held it gently. Charles watched them. My ex, he said suddenly, was pregnant. Riley blinked. I didn't run from the wedding. I ran from being a father. I didn't think I'd be good at it. My father wasn't. Lucia nodded slowly. And what if you'd been different? Charles looked at the dryers. I guess I'll never know. A loud crack of thunder made them all jump. The lights flickered, then something beautiful happened. The power didn't go out. Instead, the jukebox in the corner, silent all night, started playing a soft blues track. No one had touched it. Riley stood and walked over to it. The machine had no labels. Just numbers. 479 was glowing. What is this? She asked. Lucia smiled. Sometimes, the past plays back when it knows you need it. They listened to the song, melody soft, full of longing and old summers. Gus finally spoke from behind the counter. You all want pancakes? They turned to him, confused. I make a mean pancake. Just gotta use the hot plate in the back. Riley shrugged. Yeah. Why not? By 4:21 a.m., four strangers sat in plastic chairs around a folding table eating pancakes made in the back of a laundromat while the rain fell and the song looped again. No one asked what would happen next. They didn't talk about tomorrow, just the spinning. The warmth. The fact that, for one strange night, they were all exactly where they needed to be. Lucia kissed the baby's sock and tucked it into Riley's bag. For your next life, she said. Riley teared up but didn't stop her. At 5 a.m., the sun began to threaten the edges of the skyline. The rain stopped. One by one, they packed up. Folded. Zipped. Left. Lucia walked into the early dawn mist like a dream that wasn't done yet. Charles stepped outside and lit a cigarette, then threw it away. Riley stood alone for a second, then turned to Gus. See you next week? He nodded. Always. And as the doors closed behind her, the spin cycle began again.